About a month ago, I saw in the newspaper tips to turning polarization conversation into production. And this is from Ben Tamblin at Whidbey Island, and he has done several reproductive rights and gun control and Israel-Palestine conversations. And so I don't know, I just thought, well, that'd be my last thought, and I'd like to share some ideas. You know, polarization is a strain on relationships within our families and our friends, as you well know. It also creates violence, like Gabby Gafford and Nancy Pelosi's husband, shootings in Pittsburgh, even a Democratic person shooting someone at the Republican baseball game, and finally, you know, January 6th Capitol is. So polarization politically, you know, it's a real problem. What I'd like to share, though, is it's not just politics, it is relationships. And if we can talk to each other about our differences, we're better off. But the problem is, how do we do that? As Jesus says, they hear but don't understand. And so when we look at somebody and say, you know, we have all kinds of problems, and it's political as well as personal, as family. We all have difficulties at talking about our differences. What I've done with Grace's brother, first of all, the first time I heard he thought I was angry, that was not the right response. And I said, I got to do something different. So I began by looking at him and his family and all the positive goodness that he has, that he does. He's a very fine man. His personal religion is extremely good. He had a good marriage, good kids, pays his bills, you know, helps to neighbors, lots of goodness. But we disagree politically. So just thinking of him in positive terms has helped me to be less judgmental, less angry, less disgusted. And it, you know, took a while for me to get there, but I did. I got there. And so from time to time, we have shared a few things, and I was able to do it with gentleness. Another thing I found out what was good was to practice saying controversial things. Just practice on yourself and be able to say it in a gentle, loving, caring way. Not angry, not disgusted like I was in the beginning. And that helped, just to hear myself say lots of good things about my politics, and you know, so that when something came up, I was ready to say my part in a gentle, loving way. Now remember, this is not just about politics. We need to do this with our personal relationships, in our marriages, in our friends. It doesn't have to be politics. It can be anything about money or raising children or how to love each other and all kinds of stuff. You know, talking about difficulties, we have to do it personally. We can also do it publicly. Ben Tamblyn says, he says, when we talk and listen, sometimes we listen not to understand, but to say, I'm going to listen, and so I can put my barbs in and change that person. And Ben says, that's wrong. He says, when we talk to each other, please learn, listen to learn and to share. You don't even have to agree, but listen to their side, listen to your own side. And then he also says, they have their truth, I have my truth, and then there's the truth. And sometimes, a lot of times, we meet somewhere in the middle of that. But then somebody says, well, yeah, that works, but Biden really did win. And there's no arguing about it. On the other hand, Cynthia looked it up and says 35%? Something like that? 35% of a poll said no, Trump was cheated. That's 1/3 of the people. And so even if you know the truth, it doesn't mean you're going to change anybody. So then he also says, sometimes, just sometimes, when you can't agree, you say, well, it's nice talking to you, and walk away. Just let it be. You can't do anything about it. You just say, walk away and be calm and comforting. A couple of times, this has happened with, again, my favorite subject, Joe. I had the black African ladies at my house, and I was talking on the telephone, and all of a sudden they came in, and they were chatting, and Joe says, "What's all that?" I said, "Oh, those are my African ladies that I'm sponsoring." He said, "Well, you didn't tell me that." And I said, and very gently, I said, "Well, I didn't think you would like it." So I got my message in. Will it change him? Hell, who knows? I don't know. Anyway, I sent him a picture of us, and he said, "Thank you." No more comments. So when you offer what you have, with the idea, I'm going to change that person, no, you will not. Perhaps they may learn something, but in the meantime, let us learn from each other, not with the ideas, I'm going to hear them so I can criticize them, like the Pharisees did with Jesus. They listened to him so that they could challenge him. No, let us listen and learn and share, and just kind of break the cycle of polarization of politics as well as any other problem in our life. Cynthia, she has a few thoughts.
Excuse me.
Take my stuff out of here.
Okay. So Ron invited me to join him in this sermon, and I come humbly before you because I don't think I'm the poster child for someone who, hasn't my share of polarization. But I'm trying. When asked how he felt about our former President Trump's guilty verdict this past week, Michael Cohen said, "The truth always matters. Facts are facts." And as we know, we live in a time when facts don't seem to be facts, which is really scary. And that's partly due to how we see the world, where we came from, the media that we listen to, the social media that we have, and also, at some level, the abandonment of norms. But we're in a bad place. As Ron said, we need to listen to learn. This is extremely difficult. I think our scripture addresses that. We don't really actually do that very much. And it's also important because listening to learn builds equity and it builds trust. Jesus asks us to love our enemies, not hate them. And this is really tough love indeed. One way to start to bridge the divide is to learn about people's stories. And you may be thinking, why start a conversation if you're going to skip the facts, right? And tell stories instead. After our son moved to Florida, he discovered that quite a few people had different political views. It's like, hello. And this included one of his best friends there. And this wasn't new to him because his best friend since high school is a political conservative. And they actually don't avoid it. They actually talk about their feelings and they share where they're coming from. And I think he certainly has benefited from that. We went to visit our son a few years ago for his birthday, and we wanted to invite his close friend there. So he joined us for dinner, and my son gave me a heads up that it would be good for my blood pressure if I didn't bring up politics. No problem. I can be trusted. So we sat down to dinner, and we learned how his friend was raised by his grandparents on a small farm in southern Illinois, in a loving, caring, and very conservative small town. We learned about his friend's values. We learned that he left a really, really good job as an engineer that had taken quite a bit of work to get with a large global company, that he'd left that job to follow his sweetheart to Florida where her family lives. So that she would be happier. And we saw how much he supported Ross as Ross was going through some big changes in his life, relationship and job. As I reflected on these stories, I realized I did not care about his politics. I actually cared very much about their friendship. I'm taking a 4-session class right now called Spiritual Wisdom for Troubled Times with the 3 interfaith amigos. Has anyone ever heard of them? Yeah, it's remarkable. The 3 amigos include a rabbi, an Ayman Sufi interfaith minister, and a UCC pastor. And they've been, teaching, singing together for years, and they travel together too. It's a pretty small class, and it blows my mind that we have this opportunity to be with them and hear. And so at our first class, they started sharing, how do we deal in these troubled times? And the first thing they said is, when we're listening to someone, are we listening to learn, or are we listening to prepare our response? Or are we even listening at all? They said the process of transforming our egos from a commanding presence to a servant heart is not only important for our spiritual development, but for our own higher intelligence. In this class, we're learning about the practice of overcoming division, and as Ron said, it's all types of division. First, we shine the light on our own ego traits. We shine the light on our own gifts. We listen, respect, and connect. First, and I love this, we listen by metaphorically putting our head on the person's chest, near their heart, and really hearing them. We respect by discerning the difference between someone's behavior and their being. As we take right action in accordance with our values and the understanding of truth, we don't leave someone's divine essence out of our heart, as this has the power to lift heaven and earth. We connect because the universe, our universe, is made of stories, not just atoms. Now, Ayman Jamal Rahman says the key is to do this little by little. He said, as we travel from stage to stage, it is like as the night falls slowly until the moon rises, little by little, and eventually it will lead to a quantum jump. We all want the quantum jump, but we're reluctant to do the work little by little. Somehow, I think sometimes, however, we do need to take the facts on directly. The murder of George Floyd created profound outrage and sparked the need for truth and a much higher understanding of the prevalence and depth of racism. This truth opened the door to change. It was a quantum change and pointed us toward healing. And what is true in racism is true in religion and politics. When we devalue others, we limit all of our civil rights. So the spiritual wisdom for troubled times is the old adage of when we can put ourselves in the shoes of the other, we can begin to build equity and trust to guide us collectively to knowing the truth. I'll close with our scripture again from the Message. That's why I tell stories, to create readiness, to nudge the people toward a welcome awakening. In their present state, they can stare till doomsday and do not see it, listen till they're blue in the face and not get it. I don't want Isaiah's forecast repeated all over again, that our ears are open, but we don't hear a thing. Our eyes are awake, but we don't see a thing. May we tell stories to create readiness and listen to create equity and trust and love. May it be so.